Michigan is blessed with hundreds of miles of Great Lakes shoreline, which has been the inspiration of many an artist. From the sunsets to its picturesque coastal shores, the scenes have been captured on both canvas and film. There's one artist from the Leelanau County area that takes the inspiration of Michigan's shoreline a little differently. Her artistry begins right under her feet. The wave-tossed rocks and stones that are found along the beaches of the Great Lakes shores are what provides Maryanne Vic with an outlet for her artistic expressions. In the rocks and stones, she sees the shapes and personalities of wild animals and pets. The smooth surfaces of the wave-tossed stones provide a most suitable canvas for Mary's rock critters. A stroll along the beach will undoubtedly find Mary intently studying what's under her feet. When she does see something special in the stone, she brings it back to her home studio.
And whatever I can visualize in the stone, I paint it.
It's a three-dimensional rendition, too. I mean, this is...
Yes, it is. I visualize everything in 3 dimension, and that's where I carry it off from that. In the painting, it's a lengthy process, but I like the end results. This one is in its final stages right now.
I see that it's not something that you would start out with. I mean, you had previous art training or art experience and more or less a flat medium, I would imagine, wouldn't you? Or did you just start right out like that?
No, I'm self-taught, and I've just always loved animals, and I've loved the outdoors. And this is just something that I came up with. I've seen it done. I'd seen people paint the little landscapes on flat stones and that type of thing. And I'd seen people do the whimsical owls on stones that stood upright. I've been doing this for over 22 years now.
Goodness.
And developed my craft through then. It was more Disney-esque when I first started out, but they were real popular at every show I went to. But since then I've gotten more into the realism and the detail, and I use a lot of photo references so I can really capture the animal.
So when I see you out in the wilderness one day, you see and you look at things differently than other people. You probably look at stones now or rocks in forms of animals. I think that's right.
Unfortunately, yes. And I'm always looking. I usually collect my stones at the beach shores. Michigan beach shores are the best because they've really been hit by the waves and the sand, and they're nice and smooth. But I do go out in the woods and the fields out here, even on the roadsides. I've always got my eye to the ground looking for any unique shape I can find.
Now, you said your earlier ones were more Disney-esque. Could you explain that term?
Well, they were purple purple hippopotamuses and pink elephants, that type of thing with real smiley faces, but the detail was still there. But my caricatures evolved into the realism after the years I've been working. I just decided I wanted to make them look as real as possible so that when they're finished, you feel as though you're actually holding the real thing. And there's something important about the shape and the size. There's such a great feeling when they're finished. The reason is that once I'm done, the rock is warm from the body heat in my hand. So once they're finished, you're holding a warm little creature in your hand. And when people hold the rocks, after a few minutes, they become warm.
They do.
And people are really enticed by that.
They do have a character all themselves, don't they? I mean, it's a living creature through an inanimate object.
Right.
It's really a unique concept you got going here. How long did it take you to develop this? The full 20 years? Or
well, the first few years they were real whimsical, but the more I painted, the more I wanted the realism to show. And then I started using a lot of photo references and just really looking at animals. A lot of times now I'll even look at birds that have maybe fallen in the yard or the cat has brought in to check the wings and the feather line. And I just want them to be as perfect as possible if I can achieve that.
So you find yourself going through a lot of reference material too to make sure.
Yes.
Make sure. Now this is a nice, interesting little concept. Can I pick this up?
Sure. That's a large piece. I don't usually work in that size, but I wanted a doorstop. And when I display at an art show, I usually try to demonstrate. So this is a piece I can demonstrate on so that people can see how I paint.
I see.
Because the smaller ones are so hard for people to watch.
Is there a special method you have to use to gain this three-dimensional aspect?
It's more, since I'm not a trained artist, it's just something I've sort of acquired through the years. I use a lot of heavy brush strokes and then glazes to acquire the shading and the highlighting, and then over again with more dry brush technique to bring out the hair and the whiskers and the highlights on the face and the whole body. Now you can see this isn't finished on the back. It's very rough here. So there's a lot of hours left to go in this one.
I just touched that because I thought these were actual, but this is a smooth surface more or less, and you added the dimension to it yourself.
Right,
That's neat.
That's
what other types of animals have you seen in rocks and stones along the way?
Well, I have a fish here. This is a pumpkin seed sunfish that I'm working on, and
look at that.
It's starting to come along. I wasn't happy with it before, but it's coming along now. I got the scales on it. And see, it's a flat stone in it, but it's sat upright, and it was a fun fish. I haven't done many fish, so this was kind of a challenge. I've done turtles, I've done birds, many birds. I do people's pets too. I do their dogs and cats from photos, and that's fun too, because then they have their own little pet they can hold in their hand. Well, I've done almost every kind of animal, but I do more or less stick to the ones that you find up in Michigan.
As you were growing up, did you have any inkling that you were going into an artistic direction?
Yes, I always illustrated animals. Even when I was 8 and 9, I'd draw my cat, and I always drew horses. I was always just amazed by the horses, of course. But yes, I just always assumed I would be drawing or painting animals or somehow illustrating.
Do you remember the first rock maybe you picked up and said, well?
Yes, I do.
You do? What was that?
That was a rabbit. I started with a rabbit and a turtle. They were the first ones I did.
How did you do this? I mean, how old were you?
Well, I was in my early 20s when I started with that. And it was something, I was camping, and I had brought my paints, but I didn't have my paper with me or anything else, and I was totally bored. It was a bad rainy day, and I had been outside. I always collect rocks. I'm just a rock hound. I don't know much about the rocks, what type they are, but some people, and I'm one of them, that just have that habit of picking up smooth rocks and holding them and carrying them around. And I started with a rabbit. That was the first one I did, and then a turtle.
And then a turtle. And then it progressed. How many have you done so far?
I really can't say how many I've done. Probably a couple thousand in my lifetime, because I do this now for a living, and I've done quite a few art shows up and down the coast of the East Coast. And they are national now. I work with stores throughout the country. So,
do you pretty much kind of go in the direction of things that you can pick up, or have you done any large
Yes,
work,
this is the largest I've ever done. There's a stone outside stuck in my garden. My husband thinks I'm going to paint an ambitious project.
Do you accept commission type work, or like you said, you do with the people's pets and things of that sort, but do you just, what do you prefer, commission work or just to do something on your own?
I like both. I really enjoy the commission work, and it's always a challenge to capture someone's pet. The features and the face is it's a real challenge every time. You'd think it would be easier, but it's not. The more I've painted, the longer it's taken me, because I want more and more detail and more exactness in it. So it's gotten to be quite an ordeal with each piece now.
What's the most rewarding part of this? To see somebody come up and say, is that real?
Well, that's very rewarding. The other rewarding thing is when people, they come to pick up their pet that I've painted, a lot of people cry.
Really?
And big grown burly men will hold this little rock in their hand and cry. And it's pretty amazing to see that. And that's very rewarding to know that I've reached what I wanted.
That would be. Now, what brought you here to this part of the state? I understand you're from upstate New York.
Oh, well,
pretty much in the earlier days.
Yes. Basically, friends that I had known came up to visit and fell in love with this area. It's somewhat like upstate New York with the water, but this area was so clean and just so beautiful. The water, just the color of it was astounding. The turquoise color in the summer.
It's a very inspiring area that you're here.
It really is.
The inspiration has spilled over into other parts of artwork. You also involved in other parts. I mean, other different types of medium, aren't you? Stained glass?
Yes. Well, I needed an outlet. This is so time-consuming, and so the concentration level is pretty high, and I needed an outlet. And my husband is a stained glass artist, and so I got involved in that and started getting involved in creating outdoor pictures in stained glass. Wildlife, similar to what's here, outside here. That's why it's so inspirational. So now we do have a business in the stained glass, and I do the design work, and my husband does the construction.
Maryanne, we'd like to thank you very much for taking time to tell us about your wonderful world of rock critters here in the Leelanau Peninsula. Wish you the best of luck, and maybe we'll see new things in rocks as we pass along, and maybe
I hope so.
Will inspire us. Thank you very much for appearing.
Thank you.
So, from inspiration of Michigan's Great Lakes shoreline comes the creations known as rock critters, the unique artistry of Maryanne Vic, another fine Michigan artist who finds her inspiration literally right under her feet.